What stood out to me from day one of Mandatory Minicamp? The good, the bad, and even the ugly. That plus a whole lot more comes up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 12th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're giving us a look on YouTube, we definitely appreciate that. The show grows each and every day. That's because of you, Raider Nation, your support. And, of course, my man Ari does a great job each and every day getting us on YouTube, making sure we're looking good, we're sounding good, takes a lot of pride in his work, and we appreciate that. We shout him out and check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And, of course, you want to chime in on the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, in segment number 3, we'll have plenty of calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. And the fact that we get so much feedback on the daily as we do is awesome. It's the middle of June. It's what they call the, in air quotes, dead period of the year when it comes to the National Football League, right? I know mandatory minicamps going on, but still, there's not a ton of action going on outside of that, and that's going to get wrapped up as early as Thursday, and then all of a sudden it's going to be a nice little lull. Right now, as far as the Locked On Podcast Network goes, all the NFL hosts, like myself, we're in off-season mode where really we're only required to do 3 shows a week, but that's not my dedication. My dedication is every single day, 5 days a week, 5 days long, 5 days strong, right? That's what we do all season, all year. And that's what we're going to continue to do here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. And, of course, continuing to get the support from you and all the feedback that we get. Definitely appreciate that. I will say, as a little side note, little programming note, coming up next week, starting on Thursday, the 20th, I'll actually be on vacation. I'll be on vacation for a week, so you have the best of shows, which is a lot of really good stuff that I've collected. And then as soon as I get back from vacation, the 1 week that I'll be gone, boom, be ready to rock and roll, and we'll go the rest of the year without any vacations. And that's just kind of what we've been doing here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, so that's what we'll continue to do. But, again, your feedback's coming up in segment number 3. Always love to hear from you. Segment number 2, we'll talk about Mandatory Minicamp day number 1. Of course, I had some areas of what I wanted to focus in on for day number 1. We talked about it on Tuesday's show. We'll go over and talk about what those look like, what else stood out to me from Mandatory Minicamp, and how it could switch and get changed up a little bit later on today for day number 2 of Mandatory Minicamp over at Raiders HQ. So that'll all be in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, and really just want you to hear from a couple players and coaches that we had an opportunity to catch up with Tuesday at the facility. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Now, as far as players go, after practice, we talked to Max Crosby, we talked to Nate Hobbs, and we talked to Jacoby Myers. Before practice, we talked to passing game coordinator Scott Turner, we talked to defensive line coach Rob Leonard, and we talked to wide receiver coach Edgar Bennett. I started off asking Max Crosby this question about defensive line coach Rob Leonard. And the reason I asked him about him is because every time I'm walking around practice and observing what they're doing, especially defensively, I hear Rob Leonard. I see Rob Leonard. He's pushing these guys. He's making sure they're competing. He's making sure they're doing things the right way to the point where, hey, go back and do that rep again. Do that rep again. Hey, don't cheat the rep. Do it like this. And he'll get in there and be hands-on and show them exactly what they're supposed to be doing. If it's against the sled, it doesn't matter. He's going at it, and he's letting it be known. So he really is an intense guy, and we had an opportunity to catch up with him before practice. I loved what I heard from him. You'll actually hear a couple sound bites from him coming up in a hot minute. But after practice, I asked Max Crosby about how defensive line coach Rob Leonard challenges those guys each and every day. How has Rob Leonard challenged you and the rest of the guys in the defensive line room?
Yeah, Robbie's been incredible. He challenges us every day. You know, he doesn't coach anybody. You know, he coaches people different, but he doesn't shy away from coaching. You know what I mean? That's what I think is most important. You know, nowadays there's a lot of guys that are, you know, feel like they're too big to be coached and things like that. And it's my way or no way. Rob is a guy that can relate to us. He played, you know, Division I football. He's been around a lot of great players, and people have his, you know, respect in our room. So, you know, it's a collaborative, you know, group. You know, he walks in there, and we have the biggest D-line group I think we've ever had. We have like 18 guys or something ridiculous. Got like 4 coaches now in there, and it feels like everybody wants to be in the D-line room at all times. So it's a special group, and it starts with him. And I think he's done an incredible job, and he just pushes us in every single way and just looking, he knows what everybody wants. And you got to have real relationships with the players to be able to talk to them a certain way. And I think that's what he does a great job of doing. And yeah, for instance, like when he first got hired, like he took the time to get in a Zoom call. It was me, him, and Rob Marinelli. And like usually a coach, coaches don't do like that. It's like, no, this is my way. He got in a meeting with him, and we chopped it up for an hour and we talked just football. And I thought that was super cool of him, just because it shows like even as a coach, he's still constantly learning. And that's why me and Robbie have a real relationship. It's not like just coach type stuff. It's real life, and that's what I feel like. Why guys respect him so much. I think Marinelli was the same exact way. It was much more than just a coach. He was you have a real relationship with guys like that.
Very lengthy answer right there from Max Crosby on what Rob Leonard brings to the table. And again, getting to know these assistant coaches, getting the opportunity to be able to talk to these guys, you start to get a feel for their personality and what makes them go. And that's exactly why I asked Max Crosby about him, because I just had a good feeling, again, from observing practice and being able to hear what he had to say before practice on Tuesday. It just seems like he's a guy that is going to be able to grow not only with this coaching staff, but this defensive line group, right? And just really be able to get the most out of them. Obviously, when you have guys like Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, you've got Tyree Wilson and Malcolm Kuntz, you've already got a really good foundation. But there's a lot of guys. That defensive line room is really deep. Max Crosby told us on Tuesday it's got like 18 guys in that defensive line group right now. Obviously, everybody's not going to be there when it's all said and done, when it gets cut down to a 53-man roster. But right now, those guys are all a tight-knit bunch, and they're pushing each other, and it's led by defensive line coach Rob Leonard. I really do like what he brings to the table. So as I mentioned, he met with us before practice, and he was asked about Christian Wilkins. He was a guy that actually coached up Christian Wilkins in Miami when he was early in his career. Christian Wilkins, that is, like his rookie year, maybe even his second year. But Rob Leonard was asked about how much growth he saw. Matter of fact, Deshaun Reed from The Athletic asked him the question. And then you'll hear a follow-up about Tyree Wilson from Vinny Bonsignore. But this kind of gives you an idea of who Rob Leonard is and what he brings to the table. Check it out.
A lot. Very similar to 98's path in terms of becoming a pro. In a lot of ways, he struggled as a rookie. That tank for 2 a year in 19 was tough. It was tough on everybody. It was tough on me as a coach. I know it was tough on him. No different for 9. Last year was a tough rookie year. And a lot of like these young defensive linemen coming into their rookie year, especially the guys that are drafted at the top of the draft, they have to deal with expectations and all those type of things. He's somebody that can talk him through that process, what he went through. And every year he just kept getting better and better. But like you can see with these guys, and Christian will talk about it, like when the light bulb went on, and then in my opinion they just take ownership and create their own process. It turns into nutrition, it turns into the routine on and off the field. No different than 98. But that's like what it's all about as a coach, seeing that come on, and then when they take ownership of it, it's awesome.
Tyree is trying to move in that direction. What have you seen now? Obviously, he wasn't out here last year at this point.
No question.
It's probably a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Struggles as a rookie, but what have you seen from him?
Mindset, attitude, not giving a what people think. Hey, that's wrong. Do it again. Do the drill again. Working to the standard of what we've created in that room, and really as a defense. Really ain't that hard. It's defensive line play. It's playing hard. It's attacking the ball like it's anyone you ever loved and anything you hold dear. And it's not getting blocked one-on-one. So those may seem like cliches. That's how we start off every meeting. That's what we're all about. You hear AP talk about it all the time. It needs to sound a certain way. Like, I was talking this morning to the group about like that feeling when we went out in Kansas City and took the field. I didn't know whether we were going to win or lose, but I knew the way the game was going to be played. So that's the standard we're trying to create. That's what Tyree's embracing. It's a mindset. It's a mentality over anything else. And he's displayed that in training camp. And so, like, when you're not good at something and then pushing through it and working towards getting better at it, that is a mindset, because there's people around you, they see you do a crappy rep. No, wrong. Do it again. And attacking the ball, running all the way down the field like 98, punching at it, being an a-hole, disrupting practice. If you develop that mindset, the results are just like, it'll happen. It'll happen.
There's Rob Leonard right there, the Raiders defensive line coach, talking about how much Christian Wilkins has grown from his time in Miami, even as a rookie, to where he is right now, as the Raiders gave him a lot of money to be a free agent, a priority free agent for them when the free agency period opened up, to be that big fella in the middle to help out Max, to help out Malcolm, to help out Tyree. And you heard what he said about Tyree Wilson as well. Again, that personality that just kind of not trying to BS you. He's just telling you straight up what's going on. That's how he is with the players on the field. That's what I'm seeing. What you're hearing right there is what I'm seeing, right? But the only thing is different is what I'm hearing and seeing on the field, maybe a little bit more colorful language than what we're hearing in a press conference setting, which is fine. I appreciate that, so I don't have to bleep out a lot of stuff here on the podcast. The final soundbite that I want you to hear is from Nate Hobbs. He met with us after practice as well. Of course, Ricky Manning Jr. is the guy that we talked to last week, and he went out and said that Nate Hobbs is the key to the defense. He makes them have the ability to be able to do a lot of things. So Levi Edwards from Raiders.com, as a matter of fact, asked Nate Hobbs about Ricky Manning saying that. So here's Nate's response to that, and then you'll hear a follow-up question from me about what Ricky Manning Jr. brings to that secondary room as their coach.
I feel like it means it's your four for me, and for me, I'm the difference maker. It's a lot of difference makers on this team, but if I play at a high level, I'm just telling you what people tell me. When I play at a high level, people tend to follow. You know what I'm saying? I tend to ignite the defense. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Me saying that, I try to come out there and do the best I can every day for the team, but they telling me that. So other people telling me that, I just take that personal. And I feel like we just got a whole bunch of me's on the defense for real, fire starters, and shouts out to them. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to do my part.
What has Ricky Manning brought to that room as the secondary coach now?
I think he brings a passion. I think he has a certain passion for the game and a young energy that you don't usually get to be around as a player. You know what I'm saying? I think being a coach has a level of experience to do with it, but I think he has that experience through him playing the game. He's actually played my position. So he has pointers and a perspective other coaches don't have.
Really good stuff, I thought, from Nate Hobbs. He's obviously going into a contract year. Vinny Bonsignore asked him about that. He said, look, as long as I go out there and handle my business, the contract situation will take care of itself. I feel like Nate's in line for a really big year. You saw what he was able to do. You know what he's able to do. He's such a talented dude. His biggest thing is just staying on the field. But, man, when he's out there, he is intense. He's a hell of a player, a great addition to that secondary, great player in the slot. But, again, his biggest challenge is going to be just staying on the field for the majority of the season. If he could do that, some big things would be coming his way. So we definitely look forward to that. But those are just a few sound bites that stood out to me from the different players and coaches that we were able to talk to. Again, Max Crosby, Nate Hobbs, Jacoby Myers, and then Rob Leonard, the defensive line coach, passing game coordinator Scott Turner, and then also wide receivers coach Edgar Bennett. Today, 8:45 to 9:30, we'll hear from running backs coach Cadillac Williams. I'm interested in talking to him since we really don't know a whole lot about the running back room right now. And we'll learn a lot more about them when they get to training camp and they put the pads on, but still want to hear what Cadillac Williams sees from them as a former player who's coaching those guys up. Offensive line coach James Craig, he's another guy. You want to talk about an intense coach? That right there is an intense coach. I stood there one day at practice last week at OTAs and just watched the offensive line drills and how they went at it. And trust me, when I say they went at it, they went at it. I mean, as physical as they could possibly be without being physical where it violates OTAs. That's the best way to word it, right? They did everything that they were allowed to do all the way up till they couldn't do anymore, right? And then that's when they pulled the plug and said, okay, that's enough. But you could see that they were intense and they were getting after it. Really like what James Craig brings to the table. Can't wait to talk to him. And then senior defensive assistant Rob Ryan. Who doesn't like to talk to Rob Ryan, right? He's been obviously with the Raiders organization for a very long time defensive coordinator, now a senior defensive assistant. Would love to talk to him. Got a chance to chop it up with him at the Super Bowl. He actually goes and gets his haircut when he gets his haircut at the same place I get my haircut each and every Saturday in the cut in Henderson. So he actually goes there as well. And me and Rob had a pretty good laugh about that. I obviously go to the barbershop a lot more than he does. So that's from 8:45 a.m. to 9:30. You can hear from those coaches. We'll be able to talk to those guys. 9:50 to about 11:50. 11:50. That'll be practice. It says 11:15, but as we learned on Tuesday, it wasn't 11:15. It was more like 11:50. So that's what I'm kind of estimating it at. 2 hours. That makes a lot of sense. And then we'll talk to some players. We don't know who they're going to be yet. I think Devontae is going to be one of them, but that's, again, just an estimated guess. I'm assuming at some point this week, he's going to be a guy that we actually get to talk to. So, around 11:50 after practice, we'll have about 3 or 4 players that we'll get an opportunity to chop it up with. And whatever we get really good from any of those coaches or players, I'll definitely bring to the podcast coming up on Thursday. But coming up in segment number 2, what I was looking for on day 1 of Mandatory Minicamp and what I saw and heard from day 1 of Mandatory Minicamp. That's all coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of this show, which is Gametime. And Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. I'll say this, though. If the Dallas Mavericks don't start getting their stuff together, I should say, it ain't going to worry about if you can get tickets or not. There ain't going to be no games to go check out. It's so funny. I don't know why I'm thinking that my week is different, but I was, for some reason, keep thinking that Tuesday was Wednesday and that NBA Finals game number 3 was actually going to be played. Today's actually Wednesday. So I don't know how I got ahead of myself, but the Mavs and the Celtics game number 3 in Dallas will actually take place tonight. So maybe you're in the DFW area and you want to go to that game. Well, the good thing is Gametime allows you to get last-minute tickets. Matter of fact, they have great last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever the case may be. But for NBA Finals in particular, take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, that's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to go over what I was looking into, what I wanted to see in particular from day 1 of Mandatory Minicamp. I laid it out there on Tuesday's show. Want to go over that and also just talk about what I saw in general. And off top, one of the first things I was going to pay attention to was attendance, right? Everyone who's under contract is required to be there. We saw across the National Football League all day on Tuesday, there was a lot of guys that were trying to get new contracts that didn't show up. And then there was situations like in New York with the Jets when Aaron Rodgers had a event that he wanted to go to that meant a lot to him. Who knows what that was, but that was an inexcused absence. So, of course, those guys like him, guys like Hassan Reddick, they're subject to fines, even though, a mandatory minicamp, the team could wipe that away. Now, training camp, they can't wipe it away. If you're absent, right? And those kind of fines, they stay with you. There's nothing you could do but pay them. Mandatory minicamp, the team could decide to go ahead and let those slide if they so choose to, and most teams will do that. But as far as attendance and the Raiders go, 88 players, this is according to Deshaun Reed from The Athletic, 88 players were present at the first day of mandatory minicamp. 3 non-participants, offensive tackle Colton Miller, who's working off to the side with trainers, defensive tackle Matthew Butler, and linebacker Darian Butler. Miller is rehabbing from offseason shoulder surgery. So 88 of 90 guys were there and present, which is great. Devontae Adams was one of the guys that I wanted to make sure he was there. He was. Jackson Powers-Johnson was another guy I wanted to see if he was going to be there and working out and practicing, and he was. So those are really good signs. Now, with that being said, Devontae didn't really get a whole lot of burn in, right? He ran with the ones, obviously, because he's a one, but he didn't seem like he got a lot of reps. And it seemed like him and the quarterbacks were definitely not on the same page. Was that more because Devontae hasn't been out there working in OTAs that much? Or is that because the quarterback play wasn't that great? Was that a combination of the two? Was it the fact that they're learning a new offense? I think everything played a role in it. But I'll tell you right now, it was not a very crisp day for the offense at all. The defense 100% dominated the day. There was a couple flashes here and there, a couple nice passes from O'Connell, nice play here or there from Gardner Minshew. But all in all, it was a defensive day, right? Jackson Powers-Johnson, he was out there, but he was running with the twos, and that's probably to be understood, right? He hasn't been out there for OTAs for a while. He got back into some action on Tuesday, but it looked like they were kind of easing him in slowly. So, again, one of the big things I wanted to see was attendance. Attendance was good. right? 88 out of 90 guys. Devontae and Jackson Powers-Johnson, the two guys that I really wanted to focus in on. Matter of fact, I took some video of them and tweeted it out immediately at your boy Q254. Said, Devontae Adams is here. Boom. There was a photo of him when he was stretching, and boom, there's Jackson Powers-Johnson right there. Colton Miller was there stretching as well, but he didn't have a helmet, so I knew that he wasn't going to be practicing. He was just kind of off working to the side with trainers. He's coming back from shoulder surgery, so no need to push him. I'll just have him ready for training camp. At least that's what the hope is. The other area that I wanted to look at was the cornerback competition. I told you that the defense really dominated the day on Tuesday, and they did, no doubt about it. But I wanted to see what the cornerback competition looked like across from Jack Jones. Who was going to be running with the ones? Who was going to be running with the twos? Was it going to be Jacorian Bennett with the ones, face on with the twos? What was the case? Well, actually, it was the other role, the other way. Brandon Faison was running with the ones, and JB was running with the twos. And I think that Brandon Faison looked really good. I don't know if it was because he looked that much better why he was there running with the ones, or maybe Jacorian Bennett's just not quite where he needs to be yet. He did have an interception. He had an interception off Aiden O'Connell. And the thing about it is when it came to Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and of course we'll get into the quarterback competition, they are really splitting the first team reps, and then Aiden O'Connell started playing and throwing with the twos. And when he was running with the twos, that's when he overthrew his wide receiver, and Jacorian Bennett made a diving interception and then got up off the ground and took it to the house. So JB was running with the twos, Brandon Faison running with the ones. Jack Jones did a little bit of traveling, did a little bit of everything. Jack was really busy practice. They even had him do like a rep or two as a wide receiver, and it wasn't anything like they were working him out as a wide receiver. It was just part of the drills that they were doing. And sometimes they do that with the linebackers as well. They'll just do some drills where they're making some passes to him. I saw some outlets say, oh, he's doing wide receiver drills, and they're going to get him into Charles Woodson, Deion Sanders package. I actually saw that. I don't know who I saw that from on Twitter, but they tweeted out that the Raiders are expecting to use Jack Jones as Charles Woodson and Deion Sanders, where they have an offensive package. That's not what the Raiders were doing. They're actually been out there doing that with linebackers. They've been doing that with a lot of different defensive players, just getting them used to having their hands on the ball. And once they get their hands on the ball, what they do with it. But he was somewhat traveling, a lot of man-to-man coverage you saw with Jack Jones, and he's always out there competing. So Jack looked good. JB was running with the twos. Brandon Faison was running with the ones. Now, getting to the quarterback conversation, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, neither guy looked good, right? There was a lot of passes that Aiden O'Connell missed. There were some passes that Gardner Minshew made that just made me scratch my head. It's like, what the hell was that, right? I mean, it was not a very good day for the quarterbacks. Now, there's reasons for that. And as I said on my radio show, I don't want to overreact to June practices, right? I mean, there's no evaluation. Like Tom Telesco told us at Raiders Media Day on Monday at the indoor facility. He says, I don't try to evaluate right now, because right now they're just trying to get their feet under them. They're trying to get, a lather going on. Once they get to training camp preseason, then that's when the evaluations will really start. Right now, they're just trying to get used to each other, used to this offense. And that's the thing. Like, this defense is one unit. This defense is a consistent unit, right? They were together last year. This is the third year with Patrick Graham. So many of these guys are all on the same page. The quarterbacks, they're learning a new offense, right? They're learning some new weapons. They're learning, new offensive linemen, right? New offensive line scheme. I mean, everything is new offensively. So if you're surprised that the offense didn't have a good day on Tuesday, don't be. It's nothing that sky is falling. I'm not trying to say the offense is going to stink and they're not going to do anything, but clearly the defense is, heads and shoulders ahead of them right now, right? And they probably will be ahead of them for a while. Again, when you're one cohesive unit, and you're doing the same thing that you've done, all you're doing is adding a player like a Christian Wilkins to it, you should be better than the offense that's still trying to figure out exactly what they're doing. Even the wide receivers, as we talked to Jacoby Myers afterwards, he said, I'm still trying to learn the offense. I'm still trying to learn exactly what to do, but the more reps I get, the better I'll get out there. So, it could very well be a day where Aiden O'Connell comes back to, I can come back on Thursday and say, hey, Aiden O'Connell was fantastic on Wednesday. Man, he was slinging the ball over the yard. Or I could say Gardner Minshew had total control of the offense, right? I'll say this. The offensive line didn't look that great either, right? There's a lot of times when Max was in the backfield, Christian Wilkins was in the backfield, a corner would come on a blitz, a linebacker would come. Like, there was so many times that a defender was living in the backfield. There was many times that I was sitting there with Paul Gutierrez and Vinny, and we'd sit there and see a play and say, that's a sack. Oh, that's a sack. oh, that's a sack. Or a play that's getting blown up, oh, that running back's dead, right? Just because the way that the ball was thrown up there, oh, that wide receiver's about to get, his clock clean. That's what it was. I mean, with the defense, again, they were out there making play after play after play. Max blew up a bunch of plays. Christian Wilkins blew up a bunch of plays. You saw Tyree Wilson even on run plays. It's hard to evaluate run plays, but even Tyree Wilson was able to get in there and get active. Malcolm Kuntz looks fast, maybe a little bit bigger as well. So that all looked really good. The special teams unit, as that was my bonus that I had, they're still working on that, a work in progress. They're spending a lot of time. Anyone who thinks that they're not spending a lot of time with that special teams is crazy, right? A.J. Cole spent a lot of time doing some drop kicking. Two guys like Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs and, guys like that, they were in the return game, right? And it's going to be interesting who is actually going to be the primary kick returners. It looks like that there's plenty of guys that can do it. But we saw a lot of even Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs back there fielding some, kick returns from A.J. Cole. And there was a couple times, matter of fact, was it Trey Tucker? Yeah, Trey Tucker fielded one. It was on the fly, and if you catch it on the fly and you got a running start, you have a good chance of making a big play, but the ball was really low, like down by his shoestrings, and he caught the ball and was gone, right? But the thing about it is, and I told this to Paul and Vinny when I was sitting there, I said, that was a good catch, and he's gone. But if for some reason that got under his hands and rolled behind him, remember, that's a live ball. And now all of a sudden you got a scramble drill. And there at that time, when he made that play, nobody was behind him. So if someone's backing him up like you back up someone in baseball, like you back up first base when the play goes there, like your second baseman runs behind, then maybe that's okay. But if there's nobody there, you might not be able to take that chance. So that's something to, be careful of. Again, remember that ball is live on the kickoff, so you got to be very calculated with what you do. I will say, as a bonus, what I did see that I really liked from the offense was the use of Dylan Lobby. I thought Dylan Lobby was used early, that it was used often. He looked fast. He looked like he's going to be a part of this offense, like a big part of the offense. Used for receiving the ball a lot out of the backfield. I would not be shocked at all to see 23 catching a lot of passes. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like that. I know he's going to be a special teams ace. I know this. But it really feels like he's got an opportunity to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. It's only OTAs. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But, man, if he could be an extra added weapon on that Raiders offense, the only thing that can do is help. So I'm actually going to stick with those same fields. I want to see what exactly, the attendance, I believe, is going to be fine. It's going to be really good, as a matter of fact. But the cornerback competition, continue to focus on that. I will focus a little bit more on the offensive line as well. See if the, rotation is a little bit more. See if Jackson Powers-Johnson is still running with the twos or if they slide him up to the ones. See if the offensive line can hold up a little bit better against that Raiders defensive line that absolutely dominated them on Tuesday. Maybe they could start to step up a little bit. They've got to find out who their starting five is going to be sooner rather than later. You don't want this thing to linger. And again, it's not training camp. There's time for that. But once they get to training camp, I'm hoping that they figure out that starting five quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I hopefully see one of the quarterbacks, if not both of them, bounce back and have a really good day. I hope that on tomorrow's show I'm talking about, man, the offense really won the day. Let's see what happens on Thursday, kind of a tiebreaker. But for Tuesday, the day went to the defense. And to be honest, it wasn't even close. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts, 707-654-4693. That's coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a call from Niagara Falls, Canada. I don't have a name on it, but I know where it's coming from. He's calling to talk about the Raiders. What is it going to take for them to have a successful season in 2024 and why they might not be so successful in 2024. Here it is. Call from Niagara Falls.
Hey, Q. This is a new caller. I'm calling from Niagara Falls, Canada. So I think for the Raiders to have success next year, obviously it starts with the quarterback. Our defense was shockingly good last year. But in the same token, I think the reason why we don't make the playoffs is probably be a regression in the defense. I don't want to use the quarterback play as the reason why we make the playoffs or lose the playoffs for both. But, of course, if we have good quarterback play, at least average quarterback play, we're looking really good. And I believe the same thing you're saying with Luke Getzey, man. It's a huge red flag, man. But you never know until the season starts. But thanks for hearing me out, man. Love your show. Raiders.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Make sure you leave your name next time, right? I don't want to just call you the caller from Niagara Falls, Canada. I want to be able to call you by your name, your government name. So let me know about it. Or if you got a Raider name, let me know that as well. But yeah, it's always going to somehow come back to the quarterback play, right? As far as the success of a team goes. But, you know, the strength of the defense, I feel like the defense could do the heavy lifting and lead this team pretty deep. But there's got to be at least good and consistent quarterback play. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be elite, but it's got to be good. Good, consistent quarterback play. If you can be a 7 or an 8 consistently, I'll take that. You ain't going to be a 9 or a 10, but if you can at least be a 7 consistently, I'll take the chances, especially with that defense that the Raiders have. So we'll see exactly what it could be. I would be surprised if the defense took a step back in 2024. That would be really all bad. But you know, I guess things could happen like that. We've seen it happen before. But just from what I see, man, that defense looks like they're trying to go from being good to great, right? I mean, it looks like they're trying to be next level defense, you know. And if they are, I'll say this: better find another defensive coordinator, because if they're as good as I think that they can be, if they're as good as advertised, I think that Patrick Graham will be a head coach somewhere in 2025. But thanks for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Rich Homie Clint. Say that fast 4 times, right? Good luck. He says, hey, Q, Rich Homie Clint from the 816. I like both your reasons for making and not making the playoffs, but here's 2 different options. The reason the Raiders make the playoffs is O'Connell is thriving in the new system and leading the offense to a top 15 ranking. The reason we don't make the playoffs, we can't establish our run game, and it stalls out our offense. Switching it up a little, let me know your thoughts. Go Raiders. That's from Rich Homie Clint. And, yeah, that's a strong possibility. And on my radio show on Tuesday, I asked John McClain, who's been covering the NFL for a very long time, about the it factor, right? How do you go from being a team that's consistently a 7-8 win team, kind of middle of the pack, not good enough to go to the playoffs and make a run, but not bad enough to be picking at the top of the draft? And, you know, how far can a strong defense lead a team without that, you know, elite quarterback play? And he said it's possible to go deep with a good quarterback play, but it goes to what you're saying. You've got to have a strong run game. It can't be all on the arm of the quarterback. You've got to be able to have a strong run game to you know, for the quarterback to lean on, and of course have that consistently really good defense, which I do believe the Raiders have. The big question mark will be, can Zamir White, can Alexander Madison, can that running back room, can they thrive and be what the Raiders need? That'll be a big element to what they're going to do in 2024. So I think that you're really onto something. It'd be nice to see the Raiders have a top 15 offense. I'm not guaranteeing that just because we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? Luke Getzey and his offense, we haven't seen it thrive yet. Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, we haven't seen them be, you know, top-notch quarterbacks just yet. I do like what I saw from Aiden O'Connell the last 5 games of the season. 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And Gardner Minshew was 1 drop pass away from being in the playoffs with the Colts last season. So they can win games. There's no doubt, right? I mean, again, if one of those guys had to start on Sunday, I think I'd be comfortable with them starting, just because I know that they can win games, but they're going to have to make sure that offense is a lot better than what I've seen so far. Again, not trying to overreact to June football, right? We'll worry about it more once they get into training camp and into the preseason. Got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about what he heard from offensive coordinator Luke Getzey from Raiders Media Day on Monday, and he has some thoughts on it. Here he is, Raider X.
Hey, Q, it's Raider X. Hey, just really wanted to thank you for sharing those moments, you know, on Raider Media Day with all the coaches and GM and players. And that was really fantastic. And as you know, the big focus right now is going in on, really on offense, because we know we're going to get on that defense. Dogs. And just, the offense of, talking about Luke Getzey, it seems like he's got a great idea and a plan of what he wants to implement, and the roster supports it. Love that he talked about, side to side, lane to lane, and all these different aspects, and really, camouflaging, the offense and making it always look similar to what they're going to implement or how they're going to approach the day. And I thought that was huge. On the other side is when they do that, what I think is so huge is that they can have the same damn personnel out there with the 2 tight end set of Mayer and Bowers and still do a pass play or do a run play, do a run play, because they're chameleons. That is a power package. At the same time, it is running two capable receivers out there at the same time. And I do think that they did address the offense by adding a more explosive playmakers, to the issue. So I'm excited. I'd like to hear feedback.
Raider X, thanks for the call. I appreciate you. And yeah, the big thing about the personnel that the Raiders have is that ideally everything looks very similar. And this is Luke Getsy's words from Monday. Everything looks very similar, right? They line up, but they're able to do so many different things from what looks the same. So you keep the defenses on their heels. They don't know what's coming. They know that the way you dress it up, it all looks like this certain base offense or a certain run format, or they're going to do this pass, or, like they feel like that they're able to identify it, but you're able to do so many different things that they really can't. That's what ideally they could do. But can they do it is going to be the big question. But and I said this on the Raiders Roundtable, the Raiders Media Day on Monday, that it's one big tree. And off that big tree, you can have different branches. So it's up to Luke Getsy to develop those other branches off that tree that is just one big, boom, one big tall tree. Now, here's this offense that goes this way. Here's this part of the offense that goes that way. Here's this element that goes this way. Here's another element that, just like branches would. If you have a big tree in your backyard, go look at it. Right? The whole tree itself, right? The thing that you would climb when you were a kid, right? That's the base offense. And all those branches that the squirrels and the birds and whatever animals you have that's around your house are hanging on those branches. That's the different elements of the offense. I actually got a good picture in my head after that. Thanks so much for the call, Raider X. I appreciate you. We'll close out with this text from Tadris in New Jersey. It says, Q, you got to feel me on this. It's Tadris from New Jersey. I'm feeling great about the upcoming season. Number one reason, no noise coming from the Raiders. Noisy teams don't make the playoffs. Jets have a star quarterback not showing up for mandatory minicamp. San Fran, Dallas, Bengals have people complaining about contracts. The Raiders were noisy due to the media blowing AP comments out of proportion at the end of the season. Since then, our players have been happy. AP has just been in the lab putting in work. I smell 11-6, Q. Raider Nation, stand up. That's Tadris in New Jersey. Thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And yeah, there's no drama. That's for sure. There's no, noise, like you said, coming from the Raiders, the players themselves, and AP, as you mentioned, now that there's some football activities going on, he's just in the lab doing his thing. Now, of course, there's going to be a break in between the end of this week with mandatory minicamp and the start of training camp. Who knows what kind of conversations will come out of that? Who knows if there'll be a few players that approach the Raiders for contract extensions? We don't know. But the quieter it is, the better. You're spot on about that. And really the most noise about the Raiders right now is what are they going to do at the quarterback position? What are they going to do at the quarterback position? That's what everyone's saying, not us, but people on the outside, right, that look at the team and say, yeah, it look like they have a lot of talent, but what about the quarterback? Who's going to get the ball to the Devontaes, to the Jacobys, to the Brocks, to the Michael Mayers, right? Who's going to do that? That's a lot of the noise that's from the outside. But, yeah, you're right. There's not too much going on around the Raiders, and that, I believe, as you mentioned, is a good thing. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Still got a call from Eli from the 408, a text from Josh in the 619. We'll get that on tomorrow's show. We'll also recap day 2 of mandatory minicamp. Any good sounds that we get from the coaches or the players that we talk to, we'll bring to the table as well. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.